The nation, the world, and the financial markets were bracing for more volleys in the global trade war after President Donald Trump said he would be announcing a specific tariff rate on semiconductors this week, and China hit back with actions of its own. On Monday, Trump also said he may grant the auto industry temporary exemptions from the 25% tariffs he imposed. The Trump administration just days ago unveiled some technology tariff exemptions that include most of the stiff levies Trump levied on Chinese imports such as smartphones, computers, and flat-screen televisions. The exemptions were a rare piece of good news for the battered financial markets, and U.S. stocks closed higher Monday. We wanted to uncomplicate it from a lot of other companies because we want to make our chips and semiconductors and other things in our country, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One on Sunday as he traveled back to Washington from his home in Florida. China isn't backing down, steeply increasing its tariff on U.S. goods and choking off the flow of valuable rare earth metals and magnets into the U.S. Trump, in a Truth Social post April 13, wrote that the U.S. needs to make products in the U.S. and won't be held hostage by other countries, especially hostile trading nations such as China. He said the U.S. is reviewing tariffs involving the entire technology supply chain. Nobody is getting off the hook for the unfair trade balances and non-monetary tariff barriers that other countries have used against us, especially not China, which by far treats us the worst, Trump wrote in a Truth Social post later on Sunday. There was no tariff exception announced on Friday. These products are subject to the existing 20% fentanyl tariffs, and they are just moving to a different tariff bucket. Trump said he's considering temporary exemptions from his 25% tariffs on the auto industry to give car companies more time to transition to manufacturing in the U.S. Trump's remarks from the Oval Office came after his administration on April 11 excluded smartphones, computers, and other electronics from his steep reciprocal tariffs in a move his economic aides said is only temporary. I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, Trump said April 14, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here. An exemption on some auto tariffs, which include 25% levies on all foreign cars and light trucks as well as some auto parts, could be a major reprieve for automakers as the industry grapples with tariffs that threaten to raise vehicle prices for American consumers. Stock shares of the three largest U.S. automakers, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, shot up after Trump's comments. China has suspended exports of many rare earth minerals and magnets crucial for automakers, aerospace manufacturers, semiconductor companies, and military contractors around the world, the New York Times reports. Shipments have been halted from many Chinese ports while the Chinese government drafts a new regulatory system, one that could permanently prevent supplies from reaching American military contractors and other U.S. companies. Drones and robotics are widely considered the future of warfare, James Litinsky, chief executive of MP Materials, the sole U.S.-based rare earth mining and processing firm, told The Times. Based on everything we are seeing, the critical inputs for our future supply chain are shut down. The minerals themselves are not actually rare, but the ability to refine them at scale is, Litinsky said in a post on X. The company announced in January that it had begun commercial production of the magnets and plans to begin supplying magnets to General Motors and other manufacturers by year's end. Trump accused China and Vietnam of working to screw the United States as leaders from the two communist-run nations signed deals April 14 to strengthen their trade alliance. Amid an escalating U.S.-China trade war, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Vietnam's top leader Tu Lam met in Hanoi and reached new agreements on supply chains, cooperation over railways and other areas. Their meeting came after Trump raised tariffs last week on imports from China to 145%, triggering retaliatory tariffs from China on U.S. exports. Vietnam, meanwhile, is among the more than 75 countries that have engaged in negotiations with the Trump administration for trade deals to avoid steep reciprocal tariffs. I don't blame China, I don't blame Vietnam. I see their meeting today, isn't that wonderful? That's a lovely meeting, Trump said, adding, they're trying to figure out how do we screw the United States of America. Financial markets have struggled mightily in recent days, first with a string of announcements placing tariffs on products from certain nations such as Canada, China, and Mexico, and on certain products such as steel and aluminum. In ensuing days, the number of nations and products rapidly expanded, crushing investors and fueling turmoil in the bond markets. A series of temporary tariff rollbacks have brought some relief, but uncertainty has prompted concerns of inflation and a possible recession. Aided by the latest tech exemptions and a possible auto industry exemption, U.S. financial markets finished in positive ground Monday. China has put civilian government officials in Beijing on wartime footing and ordered a diplomatic charm offensive aimed at encouraging other countries to push back against Trump's tariffs, Reuters reports, citing 4 people familiar with the matter. Communist Party propaganda officials have played a leading role in framing China's response, one of the people said, and government spokespeople posted defiant clips on social media featuring former leader Mao Zedong saying, "We will never yield." Bureaucrats in the Foreign Affairs and Commerce ministries have been ordered to cancel vacation plans and keep mobile phones switched on around the clock, 2 of the people said. Departments covering the U.S. have also been beefed up, they said. This trade war was started by the U.S. and imposed on China, the Foreign Ministry said in a statement. If the U.S. really wants to resolve the issue through dialogue and negotiations, it should stop applying extreme pressure. Any dialogue should be established on the basis of equality, mutual respect, and mutual benefit. Read more here. As part of a previously scheduled visit to Vietnam on April 14th, Chinese President Xi Jinping called for stronger economic ties between the two countries, which said they have signed dozens of new agreements as they face severe U.S. tariffs. The two sides should strengthen cooperation in production and supply chains, Xi said, according to a story in the newspaper of Vietnam's Communist Party. Xi also encouraged closer links on artificial intelligence and the green economy. Rare earths. They might sound obscure, almost like something out of a science fiction novel, but these minerals are anything but ordinary. In fact, they are extraordinary in their applications and impact. They are the hidden backbone of our modern world, quietly powering the technologies we rely on every day. These 17 elements possess unique magnetic and conductive properties, which make them indispensable in countless industries. Think about smartphones, electric vehicles, and wind turbines. These technologies wouldn't function as they do without rare earths. And it doesn't stop there. Defense systems, from missile guidance to radar technology, also depend on these elements. Rare earths are integral to the production of advanced electronics, renewable energy solutions, and even the vehicles of the future. Their importance to industry, technology, and defense cannot be overstated. They are the unsung heroes of innovation, enabling breakthroughs in fields like aerospace and robotics. Honestly, they are the building blocks of progress in the 21st century. Without them, many of the advancements we take for granted would simply not exist. Now, here's the thing. China holds a dominant position in this critical sector. It's not just about having the resources, it's about how they're utilized. China possesses the world's largest reserves of rare earth elements. But that's only part of the story. Over decades, it has built a sophisticated industry around their extraction and processing, giving it a significant edge. This dominance provides China with substantial leverage in the global marketplace, influencing supply chains and trade dynamics. Control over rare earths is, without a doubt, a strategic asset in an increasingly competitive and interconnected world. Their role in shaping the future cannot be underestimated. Tensions between the United States and China have been simmering for years. Trade imbalances, intellectual property disputes, and technological competition have fueled a rivalry between these two economic giants. This rivalry, however, is not just about economics, it's about global influence, power, and the future of innovation. The stakes are high. Both nations are vying for dominance in critical industries like artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing. The competition has only intensified over the years, with each side taking bold steps to outmaneuver the other. The Trump administration's imposition of tariffs on Chinese goods in 2025 marked a significant escalation in this trade war. These tariffs were designed to pressure China into addressing long-standing grievances, but they also triggered a series of retaliatory measures. In response, China targeted American imports with retaliatory tariffs, hitting industries that were critical to the U.S. economy. The tit-for-tat measures created uncertainty for businesses and investors on both sides of the Pacific. But you see, it was the announcement on April 13, 2025, that sent shockwaves through global markets. This was not just another tariff or trade restriction, it was a game-changing move. China declared an immediate halt to exports of rare earth minerals and magnets. These materials are essential for producing everything from smartphones to electric vehicles and advanced military equipment. This move was a calculated shot across the bow aimed directly at the heart of American manufacturing and technological prowess. Rare earths are the backbone of modern technology, and China's dominance in this sector gave them a significant advantage. The timing? It was no coincidence. The announcement came at a critical juncture designed to maximize its impact and send a clear message to Washington. The announcement came just weeks after the United States imposed a new round of tariffs on Chinese semiconductors. This was a direct response to what Beijing perceived as an aggressive move by Washington. China's message was crystal clear: this is not a bluff. They were prepared to leverage their control over rare earths to gain the upper hand in this escalating trade war. They are willing to use their dominance in rare earths as a powerful bargaining chip in the trade war. The question now is, how will the United States respond to this bold and strategic move? The impact of China's export ban was immediate and far-reaching. It sent shockwaves through industries worldwide, disrupting the delicate balance of global trade. Companies that had long relied on steady imports were suddenly left scrambling to adapt. Global supply chains, already strained by the COVID-19 pandemic, faced unprecedented disruption. The ripple effects were felt across continents as businesses struggled to secure materials and meet production deadlines. Industries reliant on rare earths were sent scrambling for alternative sources. Mining operations in other countries ramped up, but the process of establishing new supply chains proved to be slow and costly. Panic buying ensued, driving up prices and making the crisis even worse. Traders and manufacturers alike found themselves in a frenzy, trying to outbid one another for dwindling supplies. Take the automotive industry, for instance. Already navigating the transition to electric vehicles, it now faced an additional hurdle. Heavily reliant on rare earths for electric vehicle components, it faced production slowdowns. The shortage of materials like neodymium and dysprosium threatened to derail ambitious production targets. Aerospace companies, dependent on these materials for aircraft engines and navigation systems, saw their costs skyrocket. The industry, already grappling with post-pandemic recovery, now faced additional financial strain. Semiconductor manufacturers, crucial to the global tech industry, confronted potential shortages of essential components. This raised concerns about delays in the production of everything from smartphones to advanced computing systems. And let's not forget the defense sector. The stakes were particularly high here, as national security depended on the timely availability of these critical materials. American military contractors, heavily reliant on Chinese rare earths for critical systems, faced delays and cost overruns. The pressure to find alternative sources became a matter of strategic urgency. The situation underscored quite starkly the vulnerability of relying on a single country for such strategic materials. It served as a wake-up call for industries and governments alike, highlighting the need for diversification and resilience in supply chains. Adding to the uncertainty was China's opaque regulatory system. While the export ban sent shockwaves, it was the lack of clarity surrounding future access that really sowed confusion. China announced it was developing a new system for issuing export licenses for rare earths. But the details? They remained scarce, leaving businesses in limbo. The lack of a transparent licensing process created a logistical nightmare. Companies were left guessing about future supplies, unable to plan effectively. This uncertainty fueled speculation and hoarding, further disrupting global supply chains. Honestly, the situation highlighted the risks of relying on a single, politically opaque supplier for such critical materials. Section 5, American Response, Seeking Independence in Rare Earths. The crisis, well, it forced a reckoning in the United States. The vulnerability of relying on a geopolitical rival for such essential materials became, painfully clear. Calls for diversifying supply chains and boosting domestic production gained urgency. The need for a national strategy on rare earths was no longer a matter of debate, but really an imperative. The Biden administration, inheriting the trade war from its predecessor, faced a complex challenge. Unwinding the tariffs carried its own economic and political risks. Yet, the need to secure access to rare earths was absolutely paramount. The administration pursued a two-pronged approach: diplomacy and domestic investment. Section 6. MP Materials, a beacon of hope for U.S. manufacturing. On the home front, the focus shifted to revitalizing America's rare earth industry. Long neglected domestic mining and processing faced significant hurdles. Yet, amidst the crisis, a glimmer of hope emerged. MP Materials, an American company operating a rare earth mine in California, stepped into the spotlight. Having commenced commercial production of magnets, MP Materials aimed to supply major manufacturers by the end of 2025. Their efforts, supported by government funding and partnerships with industry leaders like General Motors, offered a beacon of hope. The goal was clear: to reduce reliance on Chinese imports and establish a secure domestic supply chain for these critical materials. Section 7. Economic tremors, inflation, recession fears, and public sentiment. The trade war, exacerbated by the rare earth crisis, cast a long shadow over the global economy. Supply chain disruptions fueled inflation, eroding consumer purchasing power. Businesses, facing uncertainty and rising costs, scaled back investments, further dampening economic activity. Economists sounded the alarm, warning of a potential recession. Growth forecasts were revised downwards, reflecting the mounting economic anxieties. Public sentiment, already fragile, soured further. The trade war's impact on everyday lives, from rising prices to job insecurity, fueled public discontent. President Trump's approval ratings, already under pressure, took a further hit. His handling of the economy, once a source of political strength, became a liability. The trade war's economic fallout threatened to undermine his re-election bid. Section 8. Shifting Sands, China's Diplomatic Offensive. China, however, was not content to play defense. Recognizing the global anxieties triggered by their actions, they embarked on a diplomatic offensive. Their message was carefully calibrated, blamed the United States for the trade war and its consequences. They sought to portray themselves as responsible actors, forced to respond to American aggression. Chinese diplomats traversed the globe, courting allies and shoring up support. They highlighted the disruptive impact of American tariffs, emphasizing the shared economic pain. Their message resonated with some countries, wary of America's unilateral actions and eager to preserve trade ties with China. Section 9. A New World Order, Reshaping Global Trade. The rare earth crisis exposed the fault lines in a globalized world increasingly defined by geopolitical competition. It underscored the limits of economic interdependence when national interests collide. The crisis served as a wake-up call, forcing countries to reassess their vulnerabilities and diversify their supply chains. The trade war's outcome remained uncertain, yet one thing was clear: the global trading system, already under strain, had been irrevocably altered. The era of unfettered globalization was giving way to a new world order, one defined by strategic competition and a reassessment of economic dependencies. The rare earth crisis, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our world and the fragility of global supply chains, would have lasting consequences for years to come.